welcome to our second session. Unfortunately, Mustafa isn't here, who's the other guy that's with me here, so it's just me that's going to be presenting. So today we're going to be covering inferences and linear equations. So inferences is something that's what Mustafa was supposed to do, and I was supposed to do linear equations. Linear equations is part of math, inferences is part of English, just to be clear. Linear equations, so I was supposed to do math and Mustafa was supposed to do English, but I'll do both. And let's just dive in. So, inference questions and strategies. So, first of all, a little bit of a header. Inference questions are probably one of the hardest questions you can face on the SAT, especially because they involve a lot of reading and stuff. I'm guessing a lot of you guys struggled with inferences. No? Okay. But they are considered one of the hardest on the SAT, simply because a lot of people can have a lot of different opinions about how a question, an answer can be for, especially a reading question. There are no really actual rules when it comes to, the answers. It's just based on opinion sometimes, and it's about kind of looking into the perspective of the author, which is something that we'll be going over. This is a website. So these are kind of like the 6 steps that you have. Like, I don't remember 5 steps, but 5 steps. These are 5 steps to basically deducting inferences, kind of solving them. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you read the entire text. I see a lot of people just going halfway through the text and then just immediately going to answering the question, and that's something you don't want to do. It's kind of what the SAT wants you to do, so that you can answer something incorrectly. And the second thing is to look for traps, which is kind of the trap itself. Reading the entire text is something that you want to do to avoid making mistakes, any silly mistakes, anything of that sort. And looking for traps, we'll go kind of deep diving into that. And use elimination. So inferences for elimination is actually, elimination for inferences is actually really, really kind of key, because you want to make sure you kind of eliminate all the answer choices that don't match up with what you're seeing in the text and stuff like that. And then for examples, so kind of just try to generate some examples as you're reading inference questions. So try to see if those examples match up with the answer choices. Kind of just like how we covered words in context last week. It should be something of that sort. And then 5, practice. Ultimately, the best form of conquering inference questions is just pure practice. What do inference questions look like? So these are what inference questions look like. I'm sure you guys just answered a bunch of them in the PDF. So we'll just go over this question really quickly. So microbes that live in shallow lakes and ponds produce methane. And again, make sure you read the entire passage before you go over the answer choices. So microbes that live in shallow lakes and ponds produce methane, a harmful greenhouse gas. Ecologist Ralph Abin and his team wanted to see how different types of shallow water plants might affect the amount of methane that escapes into the atmosphere. Abin's team set up some water tanks with soil and microbes from local ponds. Some tanks had a type of underwater plant that grows in the soil called water milfoil. Other tanks had either duckweed, a type of plant that floats on the water surface, or algae. Abin and his team found that tanks with duckweed and algae released higher levels of methane than tanks with water milfoil did. This finding suggests that either A, the presence of some kinds of autowater plants, like water milfoil, helps prevent methane from escaping shallow lakes and ponds. B, shallow lakes and ponds release more methane than deeper bodies of water, because shallow bodies of water usually have more plants than deep bodies of water do. Or C, shallow lakes are more likely to contain algae than to contain either water milfoil or duckweed. And then D, finally, having a mix of algae, underwater plants, and floating plants is the best way to reduce the amount of methane in shallow lakes and ponds. So these are this is a long passage, and there are a lot of long answers, and this is how 90% of inference questions are going to be. So the first thing you want to do, again, going back from the 6 steps, is read the entire text. Look for traps. So you want to make sure you're always looking in the perspective of what the author is writing about. So microbes that live in shallow lakes. The one thing about inference questions that the SAT does to trick you is to make you use your own perspective. What do I mean by that? I mean, you might have like previous knowledge about something, maybe like something about plants, and you might apply that knowledge to what's in this question. And that's kind of what the SAT does to trick you. That's why they use questions like things about maybe economy or something you might have heard, especially current age and stuff like that, history. Everything that's in the question is basically going to be relating to that question only. All the information you need to know is going to be in this question. So that's something that they use to trick you, and they also want to make sure you also want to make sure that you're just reading the perspective of what the author is saying. So here is showing with a study. The ecologist wanted to say how different types of shallow water plants might affect the amount of methane that escapes into the atmosphere, and then it goes over the procedure of how Aben's team set up some water tanks with soil, and some tanks had a type of unrolled plant, and other tanks either had duckweed or algae, right? And so they found that tanks with duckweed and algae released higher levels of methane than tanks with water milfoil did. So you kind of want to draw that contrast first. So I wish I had a highlighter or something, but it's alright. I haven't seen so okay. And so it's giving this contrast of how there's some tanks that have water milfoil and some tanks that have duckweed or algae. And the ones with duckweed and algae are the ones that release methane. So you want to kind of go with that flow. Okay. So you want to kind of go with that flow of just kind of using that flow and going into the answer choices. So the presence of some kind of underwater plants like milfoil helps prevent methane from escaping shallow lakes and ponds. That seems like a good answer, so we'll just keep that on. And then B, shallow lakes and ponds release more methane in deep bodies of water. B is kind of relevant because it doesn't talk about like the actual tanks itself, and the study only indicates the tanks that are basically being studied. C, shallow lakes and ponds are more likely to contain algae than either water milfoil or duckweed. This is an incorrect answer because it's talking about duckweed, which is basically different from algae, and same thing with water milfoil. Those are just three separate compounds which are found in tanks, and they're just kind of relating them all together. And then finally D, having a mix of algae, underwater plants, and floating plants is the best way to reduce the amount of methane in shallow lakes and ponds. So this is kind of going too far because you're kind of making too much of a prediction. You kind of want to, again, like I said, have the answer choice that kind of matches up with the text the best. And in this case, A matches with the text the best because it doesn't go too far when it comes to inferences. It simply just goes over what the text is talking about, and that's something that you want to make sure you understand when you're doing inferences. So this is just kind of going over what we did. Traps and confuse. So oftentimes the SAT presents you kind of like rephrasing over what I was saying. Oftentimes the SAT presents you with a passage with one point of view that later switches to another point of view. And you always want to focus on the point of view of the author. And that's one of the trickiest parts of doing inference questions. Begin with a relative statement, but then draw a conclusion that is reasonable. So, again, you want to go with the relative statement that's being addressed in the text, and then try to find that general conclusion that's kind of being stated in any of the answer choices. And in this case, A was the correct answer because it matches up with general answers the best. Okay, and then I don't think this is important. And then again, elimination is something we just went over, which is just narrowing down your answer choices and picking the best answer. That's kind of what we did, this walkthrough that we did with this question. And again, many students second guess themselves. And honestly, I could say if I was doing this question myself, I would have second guessed myself into thinking either it was A or D. I might have picked D, and that's one of the biggest traps that the SAT has set up, is just second guessing yourselves. And the best way to improve is just practice. I mean, there really isn't any other way you can get around this. It's just practice, pure practice, that enables you to kind of master these questions. Okay, another example. Researchers wanted to study how consumers' reactions to an ad may be affected by other ads. The researchers began by showing study participants an ad for the product, with some seeing a less detailed ad and others seeing a more detailed one. then all participants viewed the same second ad for a store and shared their opinion of the store based on the second ad. Participants who had first seen an ad less detailed than the second ad had a higher opinion of the store than the participants who had seen a more detailed ad. Who had first seen it. The researchers concluded that reactions to an ad may be affected by, and then you just gotta logically complete the task. So I'm gonna give you guys maybe like 2-3 minutes to kind of solve this question, and then whenever you guys are ready, just raise your hand. Okay. If you guys wanna synthesize together, if you guys wanna work together, that'd be fine as well.
It's okay to talk about it, you don't have to whisper and be shy.
I think we are saying B and C.
Okay. So
We're saying B and C.
you guys have a final answer?
Okay, C, B,
C,
C.
just C.
Where's C too?
Okay.
3C to B.
No, C. Change your answer.
Okay.
1B.
So B or C?
But
Just raise your
there's
hands if you guys.
C.
Okay. Raise your hands if you guys think it's B, and then raise your hands if you guys think it's C. Okay, so the correct answer is B. So I gotta give you credit for that. And the reason why is if you go over the question, it's talking about how participants, they did like a study, the researchers began by showing study participants an ad for a product. And then all the participants viewed the same second ad for a store. So participants who had seen an ad less detailed than the second ad had, actually no, I think it's C. Never mind. I think it is C. Never mind. That is my fault because I wasn't reading the question properly. So people who had seen an ad less the first who had seen an ad less detailed than the second ad had a higher opinion of the store than the participants who had first seen a more detailed ad. So again, it's just going over detail, and that's kind of the key word in this question. So my apologies. C is correct. And the amount of detail viewed in previous ads is the right answer because the length of time is something that's just completely irrelevant to this question. It might seem really tempting that maybe the amount of detail that you might see correlates to time. That's probably why you picked B. That's completely fine though. This is just a way that the SAT kind of tricks you. And then we can go over A and D. The number of people that viewed the ad is just irrelevant. It doesn't talk about the number of people viewing the ad at all. And then same thing with the time of day that the ad is viewed. The time of day isn't really discussed here. So that's another thing about SAT questions, especially inference questions, where you gotta kind of look at the info that's being presented in the text, and then kind of just match that up with the answer choices that are being presented. We can do another example, or let's see what's going on. Okay, let's just do one more example, and then yeah. So I'll give you guys another 2 or 3 minutes to do this, and then we'll go from there. If you guys want to discuss the answer with each other, that'd be acceptable too. What do you guys think? Okay, so have you guys come up with an answer?
It's B or D.
B or D? Okay, so the correct answer is actually A.
I thought it's A or D.
Okay, so let's just go over the question and then we'll go over the answer. So, as the name suggests, dramaturgists originated in theater where they continue to serve a variety of functions, conducting historical research for directors, compiling character biographies for actors, and perhaps most importantly, helping writers of plays and musicals to hone the works' stories and characters. So there's a scholar by the name of Susan Manning who observes that many choreographers, like playwrights and musical writers, are concerned with storytelling and characterization, and in fact, some choreographers describe the dances they create as expressions of narrative through movement. It is therefore unsurprising that, so let's go over answer choice A. So dramaturgists can have a profound impact on the artistic direction of plays and musicals. So I'm not gonna say whether it's right or wrong, but just going over the answer choice, I think it's, I don't know about what you guys think, but I think that it's saying profound impact on the direction of plays and musicals. So if you look at the first sentence, as the name suggests, dramaturgists originate theater where they continue to serve a variety of functions. So people that have a variety of functions are going to have a profound impact, if you guys think about that. And then looking at the last sentence, in fact, some choreographers describe the dances they create as expressions of narrative through movement. So movement and direction are kind of like the same words because you're talking about narrative through movement and you're talking about the direct artistic direction as well. So those two things kind of have something in common. Okay, so we'll kind of keep A to the side for now. Let's go over B. Choreographers developing dances through narrative elements frequently engage dramaturgists to assist in refining those elements. So this is going a little too far when it comes to inferences because you're kind of making a prediction, you're kind of going ahead of yourself, and you're kind of going beyond the text, beyond what the text is saying. So I don't blame you guys, but that's exactly how the SAT formats it, just so that they can trick you. And yeah. C. Dances by choreographers who incorporate narrative elements are more accessible to audiences than dances by choreographers who do not. So there's nothing really talking about choreographers who are, dances by choreographers who incorporate those elements are more accessible to audiences or not. So that's again going beyond the text and what the text is saying. So there's no mention of accessibility at all within the text, and so that's why C is incorrect. And then finally D, some directors and actors rely too heavily on dramaturgists to complete certain research tasks. D is incorrect because it's sort of like a negative connotation, rely too heavily on dramaturgists to complete certain research tasks. Again, they're not researchers, these are people that are just, well, actually no, these are researchers, but there's nothing to indicate that they're being too heavily used for research tasks or anything. This is just going beyond the text again. And that's why A is the correct answer, because A and D are pretty similar if you think about it, because they both talk about how they do whatever they do, their functions. But A is correct because it actually kind of matches up with the first sentence and the last sentence as talking about having a profound impact and whether they can actually create expressions of narrative through movement and stuff like that. Okay, so, and yeah, do you guys understand why A is the correct answer? You don't understand? Okay, great. Okay, great. So, practice, okay. Let's just go for some final tips, and so we'll wrap up English and we'll talk about math. Okay, so the number of readings required shall depend on the complexity of the text, student's ability. So complexity of the text, inferences are a really complex type of text that you're gonna have to decipher on the SAT if you guys plan to take it. the student's ability can always increase the more you study, and that's why it kind of links up with how much and how much to study. Okay, and so the amount of complexity you have in the student's ability is going. So the complexity let's say the complexity of text is like right here, and the student's ability is right here. Okay, the more you study, the more you're gonna get to this level here, and that's kind of what you want to achieve here. So that's kind of why we Detroit United Pathways are here to teach you, so that you guys can learn some study strategy and stuff like that. And then again, concentration level and study objective. So this is just part of how to study, and then just making sure that you're concentrated on specific types of objectives. So let's say you're studying maybe words in context, which is another type of question which is covered on the SAT. You want to make sure you're really concentrated on that, and just make sure that the more you study, the more your ability rises, and the less complex context gets. Okay, and yeah, so this concludes our ELA presentation. We'll go over math in just a second. If you guys want to take maybe a 5-minute break, you guys can.
Saturday school students, you may take a 10-minute break.
There you go.
Do not run in the hallway and do not
10-minute
go in
break.
the gym, please. 10-minute break.
Okay, so for the second part of our session today, we're gonna go over math. And, yeah, so first things first, we'll just go over a simple question. I'm sure most of you guys know what this is. If 2x plus 3 equals 9, then what's the value of 6x minus 1? I'm sure you guys went over this. So we're just gonna go over the questions that you guys did in PDF, and then, yeah. So what do you guys think? What's the value of x?
17.
17? Yeah, that's the correct answer. So you can, obviously just deduct it by just doing like the simple math behind, okay, actually, let me see if I can pull up the whiteboard here. So, okay, so I can easily just, where's the question? 2x plus 3 equals 9. 3 equals 9. And then 6x minus 1. Okay, so I can easily solve for x by just saying, so I can subtract 3 from both sides, say 2x equals 6, and then x equals 3, right? Okay, but, so, okay, and then we solve for 6x, so 6x is just 18 minus 1, and that gives us 17. But, there are gonna be a lot of harder questions on the SAT. This is just one of the easiest questions out there. This is something you will encounter probably on module 1, which is the easy module, but when you start to get really hard questions, that's when you want to start using Desmos. So Desmos is this online graphing calculator, and literally all you have to do is just copy paste the equations into here. So as you can see, 2x plus 3 equals 9. All I have to do is just hit in 2x plus 3 equals 9, and it gives me x right here. X is equal to 3. It's that easy. And now once you solve for x, you just plug that back in. So 6 times 3 is 18 minus 1, and that's just basic math. Okay. So kind of our main theme, my main theme for for today's math session is to just go over why we should use Desmos the most, because it's the most efficient way, and it's the best way we can save time and stuff like that. And whenever we encounter harder questions, maybe when it comes to geometry or trigonometry, we can use that time allotted for that specifically. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. The table gives the coordinates of 2 lines on a plane in the xy plane. The y-intercept line is k minus 5b, where k.
Saturday school students, please return to your room. Your break is over. Saturday school students, go back to your room.
Okay, so the table gives the coordinates of 2 points on a line in the xy plane. The y-intercept line is k minus 5b, where k and b are constants. What is the value of b? Okay, so this is a really hard question, as you can see, indicated by the difficulty on what this laser pointer is working. But as you can see by the difficulty, it is a really hard question. But again, we can just use decimals. Okay, so let's just plot these points. Okay, so the y-intercepted line is k minus 5b. Okay, so the first thing you want to know is b is equal to 0 because, wait, actually no, it wouldn't know because b is the other one. So the x value of a y-intercept is always going to be 0. Okay, so indicated by that, all you have to know is that k minus 5 is equal to 0, right? Because for y-intercepts, it's always going to start with a 0, comma, and then whatever the number is. Okay, so we can just use decimals again for this, or you can just solve it by hand. K minus 5 is equal to 0. Just set that equal to 0, and then solving for k, you get k equals 5, right? So once you find that, you know that k is equal to 5. All you have to do now is plug these into decimals. So just plug these points, and this is another key concept that you have to learn about. So this is called linear regression. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a table, and I'm gonna show you why I'm gonna make a table. So first things, I'll just create a table, and we know that k equals 5, right? Can we all agree on that? And then so let's just plug in 5 and 13. Okay. Now let's see what's here. So k plus 7 is going to be 12 because k equals 5 and 5 plus 7 is 12. So we're just going to plug in 12 and then negative 15. Okay. Now, how do you determine the slope? How do you determine the y-intercept? You can do that all by hand for sure, but I don't want to do that. It's just going to cost me a lot of time, right? So all I have to do is come up with this special equation. So you see how there's y1 here and how there's x1 here? So all you gotta do is substitute those variables. Just hit in y1, and then instead of the equals, so do you guys know the standard slope equation, y equals mx plus b? All you have to do is plug that into decimals. But instead of putting y and x, all you have to do is say y1 and x1. Instead of the equal sign, you have to use this funny looking squiggly. So you can get this from, okay, so you can probably get a keyboard, and then the squiggly line is like right here, okay? And then all you have to do is say m, which is what slope stands for, x1, which is going to be our second variable, and then plus b, because that's the slope equation. So now, you're given the entire line basically here, and you can determine the x-intercept from here, and the y-intercept from here, and we're given that 0, 33. All we had to do was just come up with 2 points, which basically were provided to us in this PDF, in this question, and just plug them in and into a table, and there, you got an equation for you, basically, right here. It's gonna take a lot of practice for you to get to this point, but since I've already gotten a lot of practice, that's probably why I'm able to do really fast. But here, we can literally see where it says m equals -4. It's giving you the value of what m is, which is the slope. The slope is going to be -4. I could have easily done y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is the standard way of finding the slope. But that's gonna take me a lot of time, and I don't have time on the SAT. So, given this calculator on the SAT, you need to make sure you can take advantage of it, because this calculator is going to provide it to you. It literally says the SAT and SAT version. This calculator is going to be provided to you on the SAT, so you want to make sure you know how to use it and how to take advantage of it. Okay, and here you're given that b is 33. So b is basically this variable, and that's the y-intercept, and b equals 33. So that's all you have to do for that equation. And yeah, another thing you gotta make sure you make sure you understand is if you want to have, so here we're given two basically these two variables. We know what y1 and x1 represent. They're basically represented by this table, but m and b are the ones that are unknown. And if you want to solve for an unknown variable, let's say you need maybe to find two unknown variables, like this equation. You need to have 2 points. So points on the graph, like this one right here and this one right here. This one right here. Okay. If you don't have those points, if you only have 1 point, but you're trying to solve for 2 variables, you can't do that. you have to find 2 points and 2 variables. So if I want to find 3 variables, I need to have 3 points on the graph. And that's kind of one of the main takeaways from Desmos is, because you can't have just 1 point or 2 points and attempt to solve for 3 variables. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Let's move on to, so you guys understand what value b is, right? So it's 33, and do you guys understand linear regression? This is a little bit of a tough question, but once you get the hang of it, once you kind of understand the gist of it, it'll become really easy. Okay. Let's go to question 3. A candle is made of 17 ounces of wax. When the candle is burning, the amount of wax in the candle decreases by 1 ounce every 4 hours, okay? If 6 ounces of wax remain in this candle, how many hours has it been burning for? So, you want to kind of just make like an equation maybe. You can just go back to the whiteboard. So 1 ounce every 4 hours. So we can say maybe let's clear this up. Okay, so let's just make an equation here. So let's say 17, or actually maybe we can start with. Let's start with 6. So 6 equals 2. Negative 1/4, right? Because this is 1 ounce every 4 hours. You always want to remember that time is always going to be an x variable. No matter what happens, time is always going to be an x variable on the SAT. And then other variables, like maybe 1 ounce or something, is also always going to be a y variable. So if I'm decreasing by 1 ounce every 4 hours, that indicates that 4 should be at the bottom, so it should be a fraction. It should be 1/4, which is indicated by 1 ounce every 4 hours. That's the key word. Every is the key word because it kind of is giving you like this fraction. It's basically yelling at you to make a fraction. Okay. So let's just say 1/4, like we discussed. So 1 ounce of wax every 4 hours, and then make an x here. Why am I gonna put an x here? Because I don't know the variable. I don't know the variable for. I don't know how many hours it's been burning for. X represents the amount of hours it's been burning for, basically. Okay. And after you put 1/4 x, I want you to put plus 17. Why plus 17? Because that's the number that we start with. So solving for this equation is going to be a little, I don't know if it's going to be complex or hard. You can obviously do it by hand, or you can just plug it into decimals. So 6 equals 1/4 x. And you don't even have to plug this in standard form, or you can just plug it in any form you like. So 6 equals 1/4 x plus 17. And we're given, oops, did I do something wrong? Oh yeah, it's negative 1/4 x. Because you're basically going down, right? So I should have put this negative sign here. So again, a lot of silly mistakes on the SAT can lead to lots of problems, okay? I just forgot this negative and I got a completely different answer. I got negative 44. So you gotta make sure you label everything, and you gotta make sure you double check whatever you're writing down, whatever your answers are, because you can make a lot of silly mistakes, like the mistake I just made just now. So you're starting with 17, and you're decreasing by 1 ounce every 4 hours, and that leads you to 6. And so ultimately, x equals 44, because we derived that from Desmos, where it says 44(0) is our solution. So yeah, that's our x value. That is the answer for this. So it'll be D basically for this. Any questions about this? Because this is a word problem, and you might find this confusing. No? No questions? Okay. Let's move on. Do you guys understand though why it's 44? Okay. This is another hard question. The table shows 2 values of x and their corresponding values of y. In the xy plane, the graph of the linear equation representing this relationship passes through point 1/7a. what is the value of A? So for this equation, if you don't know how to use Desmos, this is gonna be one of the hardest questions you're gonna encounter on the SAT. However, if you do know how to use Desmos, this will be really easy. So, all you have to do is do linear regression, what I'm talking about. Linear regression is just plugging in the values into a table. I like to just type in table because it's easier, but once you get the table, all you do is plug in the x and y values. So negative 18, negative 48, right? And then 7 and then 52, right? 7, 52, okay? So now you just make the equation. So since you're given that it's going to be a linear equation, we can just use y equals mx plus b again. All you have to do is plug it in. So y1, because it's you're kind of copying it from this value, and then use the squiggly line. Actually, I want you guys to maybe try this by yourself. So I want you guys to plug this into Desmos, and just if you guys can load up Desmos.com. It doesn't matter if you have the College Board version or not. Just load up Desmos graphing calculator. That should be fine. And then I'd like you guys to practice linear regression. It's gonna be really hard at first, but I promise you, the more you do it, the easier it gets. When I first started SAT prep and using Desmos, it was one of the hardest things I encountered. But after I used, endless amounts of practice, I became really proficient in it. So,
Is it 24?
Hmm?
Is it 24?
4, that is the y-intercept, so I'll provide more directions. Okay, so you guys know how to use the Scopely line? Did you guys figure that out? The Scopely line is over there. It's, you want to hold down shift and then hold the Scopely. So hold down shift. Okay. And then make sure you go y1 equals. Okay. And then so you should be given y1 is equals to mx1 plus b. Okay, so you're given the equation. And you said yes whether the intro is 24.
I got 2 intervals.
Hmm?
I got 3 answers.
Okay, 72. Yeah, so those are the points that you plugged in. So 0, 24 is the y-intercept. We're not looking for the y-intercept in this question. So that's a good try though. That's a really good try. That's a really great observation. It would have been really helpful for the previous questions that we used this one for. So now we're given that the graph of this linear equation represents the relationship passes through point 1/7a. So now in this scenario, all you have to do is make the equation x equals 1/7, because that allows you to just figure it out on the graph. X equals 1/7 shows that, okay, so what is the value of A? So this is a little tricky because Desmos does not give you fractions. It only gives you decimals, and this is really tricky. So make sure to convert those fractions into, those decimals into fractions. So do you guys understand how I got x equals 1/7? All I did was, so x equals is always going to be a vertical graph on a graph, okay? It's gonna be a vertical one. So x equals 1/7 is the value of this. So all you have to do is just plug in 1/7, okay? And then A is going to be the value of the y value when these two graphs intersect. And that's why having a graphing calculator, especially Desmos, is basically cheating, basically. It almost feels like it's cheating because it's so easy. So you're given here 24.571, which is the y value of this intersection, okay? 24.571. So let's look at our answers here. So first of all, we're given -4/11. This is gonna be a negative number, and so this is why this is incorrect. -4/77 is also gonna be a negative number, and we're given a positive number for this. so that's not gonna be valid. C is 4 over 7. 4 over 7 is a number that is less than 1. So that can't be the answer because our answer is 24.571. So that leaves us with D, 172 over 7. We can also double check it by just plugging in these answer choices. So 172, we can say y equals 172 over 7. And that leads us right here. We can plug in all the other answer choices in, and we can kind of just see which one intersects at that line. So we can say 4 over 7, if you guys don't believe me, this is where 4 over 7 is. It's really low down here. It's nowhere by the intersection, so it's not the answer. And then if you plug in y equals negative 4 over 11, negative 4 over 77. Again, all these lines are nowhere to be found by the intersection. The only one that intersects at this line is y equals 172 over 7. And so that's why 172 over 7 is the right answer. Okay? You guys understand why that's the correct answer? Okay, the width of a rectangular dance floor is W feet. The length of the floor is 6 feet longer than its width. Which of the following expressions expresses the perimeter in feet of the dance floor in terms of W? Okay. So this is sort of a geometry question, even though it says algebra. So you gotta make sure you visualize this. The best thing you can do when it comes to a question like this is to just simply draw it out. So you guys are given a piece of paper, just try to draw out like a rectangle, and then you're given the width is W feet. Okay. So I'm just gonna draw. Let me just see if I can adjust the camera here. Okay. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna draw a rectangle. Okay. So it's not the best rectangle in the world, but it'll do. So we're given that the width is W feet, right? The length of the floor is 6 feet longer than its width, okay? So we already know that this is gonna be the long side, and so this is where it should be. So if the length is 6 feet longer than the width, what's the length gonna be? It's gonna be W plus 6, right? Because all you're doing is you're taking the width and you're adding 6 to it, right? So that's why it's going to be W plus 6, okay? And then, now that you're given that, which of the following expresses the perimeter? So the perimeter is just basically the surrounding. It's not the area, which is just multiplying those two sides. It is the perimeter, which is finding and adding all 4 sides, okay? So, since we're given that the width and the length are this, we can just simply put in W here and W plus 6 here, okay? Now, you can probably do everything in your head mentally, but I'm still gonna do it on the whiteboard here. So basically perimeter is just 2 times the width and then 2 times the length, okay? Or you can just add all 4 sides together, but for the sake of, just multiplying, I'll just do this. So 2W plus 2W plus 6, and all we have to do is simplify this expression. So we're given 2W, okay, so this is basically this box right here, and then 2W plus 6, okay? So again, multiplying, you get 2W, 2 times W is 2W, and then 2 times 6 is 12. Do you guys understand that? Okay, and then you simplify, so it's just gonna be 4W plus 12. And that is our final answer. Because we're not told to solve for W, we're just told to just find the expression for it. Now, I could have done this, and I did it the long way anyway, but I could have also just looked at the answer choices and deciphered. So, let's look at the answer choices here first. So 2W plus 6. Okay, so you're given that the width is going to be W feet. If I'm given that the width, if I'm only given variables there here, right? So I expect 4W because I'm gonna have a W on each side, and it's asking for the perimeter. So that means all the sides. So I wanna expect something instead of 2W, I would expect 4W because I'm gonna have W on all 4 sides. So that's why you can just indicate from the answer choice, you can just decipher from the answer choice that it's going to be B because this is the only answer choice that has 4 W's in it. If you look at C and D, they have squares in them. This is an area. C would apply or D will apply if we're talking about area. But we're not talking about area, we're only talking about perimeter. So this is only going to be linear. This is not gonna be quadratic, in which C and D indicate. We're not finding area, and that's why C and D are not correct, okay? Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys understand everything? Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay. This looks really long. Okay. A city is planning to build a rock-retaining wall, a monument, and a garden in a. The table shows the 4 rock types that will be considered for use in the project. Also shown for each rock type is its weight per volume in pounds per cubic foot, and the cost per pound in dollars. Only basalt, granite, and limestone will be used in the garden. Okay. So, rocks in the garden will have a total weight of 1,000 pounds. If 330 pounds of granite is used, and the following equations can show the relationship between the mass of X and Y and V cubed for each of the other rock types used. Okay. This is a long question, so I guess the best thing to do is just break it down. So it's giving a table showing 4 rock types. Let me just drink some water. So it's giving 4 rock types, and it's saying that only 3 rock types are going to be used in the garden. Okay, so it's saying that basalt, granite, and limestone will be used in the garden. So there's no other mention of sandstone at all in this sentence. In this paragraph. So we can just eliminate sandstone right there. Okay. So the rocks in the garden will have a total weight of 1,000 pounds. Okay. So given that it's gonna have a total weight of 1,000 pounds, 330 pounds of granite is going to be used. It's saying if it is used. Which of the following equations could show the relationship between amounts of X and Y and V cubed for each of the other rock types used? Okay. So the first thing I would do is subtract 330 from 1,000 because we're already given that we're gonna be given we're only gonna have 330 pounds. Okay, so 1,000 minus 330 is just going to be 670. Okay, and so from there we can start looking at the answer choices. Okay, so and also cost isn't really mentioned in this except for like here. Also shown is just showing that, oh, this is what's indicated in here. This is what the cost per pound is. Other than that, it's just not mentioned at all. Okay, so we can ignore cost. We can just focus on this. Okay, so let's look at this. So let's look at our answer choices. So 165x plus 120y. That's not correct because let's take a look. Okay, so 300 pounds of granite is used. So we don't want to have granite used at all in this equation because we're already accounting for granite, right? And so that's why it's only showing X and Y, the relationship between those. So our only variables for X and Y is going to be basalt and limestone, right? Because granite is already accounted for. So which of the following equations can show the relationship between X and Y for other rock types? Okay, so let's ignore the ones with zeros in them because we're already taking into account. We've already taken into account that 330 pounds of granite is going to be used. So let's just eliminate thousands. I hope you guys understand why thousands are being eliminated. Do you guys understand why? It's because we're already subtracting 330 from 1,000, so we're just given 670. Let's look at A and C. So A and C are the only ones that are left. Let's talk about A here for a second. What does 165x represent? So if you look at the table here, so granite has 165 and A has 165. Why do we want A? Because it's already accounting for granite. And we're just talking about granite again in this equation. This does not match up, I mean, because we're already taking it into account for granite. So, and then 180y is probably basalt, and that's why A is not correct, because it's talking about granite even though we've already eliminated basically. So that leaves us with C. 120x plus 180y equals 670, because 120x represents the limestone, 180y represents the basalt, equals 670. So that's taking into account all three variables, because 120x is the limestone, 180y is the basalt, and 670 is just 1,000 minus 330. Okay, and so that's why C is the correct answer. Okay, I hope you guys understand why C is the correct answer. Do you guys have any questions about that? Okay, let's talk about this. An artist paints and sells square tiles. The selling price P in dollars of the painted tile is a linear function of the side length of the tile S in inches, as shown in the table below. So we're given here just three values and three inputs and three outputs. So the side length and the price. Which of the following could define the relationship between S and P? What do you guys think we have to do here, this equation, for this question? Any ideas? Just throw an answer out.
I think it's B over A.
B over A?
Yeah.
Why do you think we should do that? Any other ideas? No? Okay. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you guys what you want to do. Just plug it into decimals. You can go with the B over A strategy, and that's 100% correct. But that's gonna take me time. All I have to do is plug it into decimals, and I'm given the answer. I'm given linear regression. All I have to do. Okay. So let's plug this in. All we have to do, like I said, we just need two variables. So we're just solving for two variables, right? So all we need is, we just need two of these table values. So let's just plug in 3, 8, and then 6, 18. Okay. Let's see what that gives us. We can plug in all 3 if you want. But yeah. Again, I just type in table because it's a lot easier for me. 3, 8, and then let's say 6, 18. Okay. 6, 18, and let's plug in 9 and 20. Just let's see. Okay. So now, again, and it says right here that it's a linear function. So that's why we can use y equals mx plus b, because we're told already that it's a linear function. Okay. So again, just try this out if you can, and just tell me what you guys get. If you guys can do it by yourselves, I'd really appreciate that. And just tell me what you guys get. Okay, so you're given those points. So you're given M and B, right? You're given M equals, yeah, and you're given B is equal to -2. Okay, you guys get all those. Okay, and so once you're given that, all you have to do is just match it up with the answer choices, because you don't have to plug in anything. This is one of those answers like question 1 and 2, where you actually had to type in the answer. You're just given the answer choices. So find the one that makes the most sense. So let's plug it in. And let's just focus on B here. B is the y-intercept, right? And B equals -2. Which is the only answer choice that has B equal -2? It's only C. See how the question only took me like 5 seconds? I mean, maybe 3 seconds? Exaggerating a little bit, 5 seconds, but 30 seconds basically. I could have gone with the method that, you know, you suggested. What's your name?
Zainab.
Zainab. I could have gone with the method that Zainab suggested. But that would have taken me a lot more time on the SAT. And that's fine, that's totally fine. A lot of people still go with that method. And, you know, maybe if you're really good at math, you can go with that. But ultimately, I'm trying to save time. And that's why I'm using Desmos. If you're given this facility, if you're given Desmos, why not use it? If you're given the facility, just use it. And it takes me just 5 seconds or 10 seconds to just input the answer into it, and boom, I'm getting this answer. So, if you want to go over the technical, you can go over that. But since we're going over kind of just strategy here, let's just go with C because we're given -2 right here, and that's our y-intercept. And this is the only question, this is the only answer choice that has -2 in it. So I hope you guys understand it, okay? Okay. The graph of 7x equals to y, let's see, we have graph of 7x equals to y equals. So, again, for this question, what do you guys think we have to do? Desmos, yeah. Just plug into Desmos. So, 7x plus 2y. And you don't even have to convert this into y-intercept. If you're given a standard graphic calculator like a TI-84 or something, it's when you have to, and that's when you have to. If you're given a standard calculator like a TI-84, you have to convert that into a slope-intercept form if you want to have, let me just check. Okay, let's still. You have to convert it into slope-intercept form, and then you have to plug it into your calculator, right? But for Desmos, all you have to do is just any form works, okay? So 7x plus 2y equals 31. -31, yeah. See how funny mistakes can just give you a completely different answer? So, 2y, right? I said 27. Okay, so we're given the x-intercept and the y-intercept. The x-intercept is going to be -4.429, and same thing with this, -15.5 is a y-intercept. So, just put that, so it's asking for what b over a is. It's given that our x-intercept is a, and our y-intercept is b. So what's b over a? So y-intercept is -15.5. Okay, let's put that over -4.429. And we're given 3.4, whatever this number is. Okay. So the first thing I'll do is eliminate answer choice A and B because both of those numbers are negative, okay? Negative divided by negative always gives me a positive number. So that's why A and B are incorrect. Let's go with C. C is, so if you look back at our answer is 3.49. What is 2 divided by 7? That's less than 1. Our only answer that can be possible is 7 over 2. So I can also, actually I don't know if I can do that, but if I put in 7 over 2, that gives me something really close to 3.499. 3.499 is basically 3.5 if you're rounding. So that's why 7 over 2 is the right answer because it's just 3.5. Okay. Let's look at this here. In the equation below, above, A and B are constants. If the equation has infinitely many solutions, what are the values of A and B? Okay. So the first thing I'd want to do is again plug in into Desmos, but what I'm gonna do here is instead of plugging this all as one, I'm gonna plug this in as 2 separate equations. Why am I gonna do that? Because I don't know what A and B equal to, but I know for a fact if I plug in -1 minus 2x, it's gonna show up as something on the graph. So let's just plug in -1 minus 2x. Okay. Okay. Let's see what A 3 minus x minus b. So since we're given the answer choices here, this is gonna be a lot more of an easier question. But for answers, for questions where you have to type in the answer, that's when it starts to get tricky. Okay, so all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this, so a 3 minus x minus b. I'm just gonna type this in. Okay, and it says here that I can add sliders to define what a and b are equal to. Because it's not gonna know what a and b equals to. So I have to declare those variables if I wanna make sure that these match basically. If I wanna make this existing. Otherwise it doesn't know what a and b equals to. Okay? So let's try int choice a. A equals 2 and b equals 1. B equals 1. So here, if you guys know about infinitely, how many of you guys know what infinite and many solutions means? You guys mainly know what that means? That basically means that on a graph, the lines are the exact same. So let's say, I don't know, y equals x, right? All I'm gonna do is say 2y equals 2x. And that gives me, I'm just turn off these two. If you look on the graph, they're the exact same line. Because they basically are the same thing. All I'm doing is multiplying both sides by 2. That's why it's infinitely many solutions. If I put this into an equation, if I say 2y minus 2x equals x minus y, it's going to give me infinitely many solutions. So that means I'm not going to get any definitive answer. I'm just not going to get the value of x and y at all, because any point, any value of x and any value of y will satisfy both these equations. If I put 2y minus 2x equals to x minus y, at any point is gonna satisfy that equation. Okay, so let's go back. It was a bit of a tangent, but let's just go back and let's talk about this. So here, the lines are not exactly on top of each other, right? Because you can see both the lines. In fact, these lines are parallel. These lines have the same slope, they have the same direction, but they're not exactly the same, like, because they're not resting on top of each other. And that's a requirement for infinitely many solutions. Currently, it's having no solutions because they're parallel lines. The lines never intersect each other, so there's no definitive x and y value that can satisfy both equations. Okay. So a equals 2 and b equals 1 does not satisfy. Let's try a equals 2 and b equals 7 here, okay? Let's see what that gives us. And it gives us basically the same exact line, right? So that's why b is the correct answer. We can go over c and d, but let's just look over a equals negative 2. When I put a as equals to negative 2, that completely flips the direction of my line. It doesn't make it go negative, it actually makes it go positive. And that's why B and C and D are incorrect, okay? I hope you guys understand. Let's look at this. Okay, so this is our last question. It's been a while, but yeah. This is our last question. On a 210-mile trip, Cameron drove at an average speed of 60 miles per hour for the first X hours. He then completed the trip, driving at an average speed of 50 miles an hour for the remaining hours. If X equals 1, what is the value of Y? Okay. So it's saying on a 210-mile trip, Cameron drove at an average speed of 60 miles an hour for the first X hours. It's saying right here that X equals 1. So just that just means for the first hour, he drove 60 miles an hour. So on a 200 miles trip, that means he covers 60 miles in 1 hour, okay? So for this, do you guys want me to draw it out, or do you guys think I can like explain it like verbally? You guys would understand. I can just draw it out. So let's draw it out. So on a 210 mile trip, but let's just go here. So 210 equals X plus Y. Actually, no, we should put 50X plus 60. This wouldn't be X plus Y, this would be 50X plus 60Y. So 60X plus 50y. Why? Because we're given that 210 is miles, right? And 60 is miles and 50 is miles. X and y are variables relating to time. And so that's why we can't just say x plus y, because we're not defining how fast Cameron is driving. And so that's why we can't say that. Okay, so now that we're given this, we can just plug this in decimals, right? And so we can just say 210 equals 60x plus 50y. Okay. You're given that x equals 1. You just plug that back into decimals. And what's your value of y? Our value of y is 3. And so that's why the value of y is 3. And this makes sense if you look at it from a mathematical perspective, because what is 3 times 150? 3 times 50. 3 times 50 is just going to be 150. Okay? And then what's 1 times 60, since x equals 1? That's gonna equal 60.
180. Oh.
Yeah, so 1 times 60
Oh,
is, yeah, there you go. So 1 times 60 is 60.
I was
So all you do is just add these two together. 150 plus 60 gives me 210. And that concludes our presentation today. I won't go over the rest of the questions because we kind of went over inferences, and yeah, that's about it. So thank you guys. Really appreciate you guys for coming over and coming to our second session. And yeah, I'm really happy that you guys attended, and yeah, it means a lot to me. So, and Mustafa is also really happy that you guys came. He's really grateful. He just couldn't come today. He had some issues, but yeah. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation today. I'll be having a good